Welcome back to my BN4 Mono-Soul Challenge Run series. In these BN4 runs, I play through the game starting on a fresh save file up until the first duo fight, while using patch cards to keep one double soul active for the entirety of the run. These patch cards let me permanently use a soul, but also gives me an annoying HP bug that rapidly drains my health down to just 1 HP. In addition, my folders are usually limited to chips that fit the theme of a double soul. For example, I could only use fire chips with fire soul or wood chips with wood soul. Today, we're going to be looking at my junk soul only run, which ended up being the deadliest run that I've played so far. As such, I won't be showing every single death in the video, since that would take way too long. Instead, I'll be changing up the format of this video slightly, putting an emphasis on some of the more common causes of my deletions, and how Junk Soul made this run more interesting than most of the others. But before getting into the run, let's quickly discuss Junk Soul's abilities. First and most obvious, there's the chip recycle ability. Each turn, I'll have 2 chips in my custom window, which will be chips that I have selected to use on previous turns. This means that theoretically, every chip in my folder can be used twice. Secondly, Junk Soul normally causes enemies to become confused when it's activated. Fortunately, these kinds of abilities still activate at the start of every battle, so there's going to be a lot of confused enemies moving forward. Now to briefly go over the rules. Originally, I was planning on making this run an obstacle-only run, but there was an issue that I couldn't solve. Junk Soul's charge attack is Poltergeist, which requires there to be obstacles on the field. And seeing as my starting folder has no obstacles at all, keeping my folder limited to obstacles only would have meant that I could only use the regular buster for a very long time. So I instead decided to lean into the chip recycling aspect of Junk Soul by allowing all damage dealing chips to be usable, but adding the caveat that using at least 1 recycled chip each turn would be mandatory. Other than that, my rules are the same as with every other run. Strong defensive options, such as invis, barrier, and recovery chips are banned, as is the pop-up chip once again. I'm glad I won't have to waste 2 hours of my life trying to get that chip again. So, I begin my run with my starting folder fully usable for the first time since my Roll Soul run. Since confused enemies generally move slowly, the early viruses in the game are easy to deal with here, as is the first normal navi that you fight, who never attacked me until after his confusion wore off. Unfortunately, I did accidentally break a rule here by taking only wide sword when it wasn't a recycled chip, causing me to waste a lot of time. This eventually led to my first defeat of the run. As for my second death, I'm going to highlight it because this is a death that got repeated a lot in this run, featuring one of my least favorite viruses. As it turns out, melody viruses still attack you while confused, but will miss their attack. However, since I instinctively try to dodge their attacks, I would sometimes end up accidentally moving directly into them, causing me to get deleted. In some instances later on in the run, I would even be standing still to avoid them while they're confused, only for the confusion to end after 1 jump, letting them delete me on the second jump. I really don't like melody viruses. Getting hit by a misplaced attack during confusion is also what led to my dirt death during the first tournament prelims. This just goes to show that although enemy confusion is generally a good thing, it can sometimes make the game more unpredictable. However, I also did get to experience some good out of this run early on, which is the fact that I could use the time bomb chips that I obtained from battle mystery data in the town area. And believe me, that chip is going to be a staple in this run. Moving on to the first tournament, my first round opponent was actually Ponta for the first time in a while. Fortunately, that means no Tetsu Death Gauntlet, but sadly does mean the return of the Fan. The Fan does of course cause a death, but I managed to find my time bomb in my second attempt at it, giving me the win since I got to use it twice. Now for the fight against Ponta, where I finally got to do something entertaining. Starting off, Ponta's Navi was of course confused, and I managed to hit it with a spreader, air shot, and cannon in rapid succession. On turn 2, I landed a wide shot alongside recycled spreader and air shot, and a heat shot. Unfortunately, Ponta used Recover 50 here, which doesn't matter much at all. As it turns out, normal navis use obstacles, so I can use my charge attack against them to deal 100 damage each time they use one. After my poltergeist, a few buster shots were all I needed to win the battle. Round 2 of course put me up against Jason Momoa, who will not summon any obstacles for me. We'll go right into the battle for this one, and start by pointing out that Bubbleman attacks from random spots when he's confused, which caused me to get hit twice by him early on. So of course, I ended up dying on my first attempt at fighting Aquaman. In my second attempt, I realized that when enemies get paralyzed, it overrides the confusion, which could be helpful. However, I still ended up dying to Aquaman again on attempt 2. I then died again on attempt 3, because apparently I am terrible at dodging his bubblers. On attempt 4, I started off with a thunder and a cannon, taking a hit back in exchange. On turn 2, I just used my 2 recycled chips and stayed alive until I got back into my custom window. Over the next 2 turns, I used and reused some guard chips to get some damage while staying safe, leading into turn 5, where I finished Aquaman off with an air shot and a thunder chip. The last up in this tournament was Top Man yet again. Fun fact about boomer viruses also, while I can bring it up, they do absolutely nothing while confused, which is actually a bit annoying. What's also annoying is how this Top Man fight ended up going. I did get an immediate counter hit against Top Man, who tried attacking right off the bat, which of course removed his confusion. Most of the early turns actually went well, and I did have a preset double crack that helped out twice thanks to chip recycle. Unfortunately, I did have the guard chip in my folder, which isn't the best chip for fighting against Top Man in my opinion. Getting 2 of those guards as recycled chips while having no other chips sharing a code with them basically meant that I lost my turn on one occasion. However, with some skillful dodging thanks to me just pause buffering against his mini-top, I was able to stay alive and get Top Man to below 150 HP, letting me end the battle with my time bomb. Let me know in the comments below if you think pause buffering against Top Man is cheating, because I honestly think I would have died in that fight if I hadn't done it, but pausing is also part of the game for a reason. Up next is the park area and the Toy Robos, where I finally get one of the most important chips in the game, Rock Cube. After dealing with the Toy Robocomps, I of course took on Shade Man, who deserved this rock to the face. Next up, I decided to take on Aquaman Alpha to obtain the Aquaman chip, showcasing how helpful the Variable Sword and Rock Cube chips I attained are. After that, my next goal was to also obtain the Top Man chip. During that fight, I managed to get my life sword to bring his HP low enough for yet another time bomb deletion. Sadly, after getting these Navi chips without any deaths, I did end up dying to the 10-point gauntlet twice, both times to Melody viruses, of course. After getting through the prelims, my first round opponent for the next tournament was Flav, another enemy that I haven't faced in a while. I actually did quite well in the cooking minigame for once, nearly getting a few perfect rounds in there. I guess I'm getting slightly better at this game over time. In the battle against Flav, I started off strong with 2 Thunderballs, which let me safely set up my time bomb. The annoying thing about this fight was the blinder that he used, which luckily doesn't stop my poltergeist from throwing his fanfare right at him. On the following turn, I brought a recycled spreader alongside the Rock Cube and Variable Sword. After using poltergeist on my rock, Flav ended up using wind, which gave me yet another poltergeist target. A counter hit Variable Sword into Wide Shot, then left him at 30 HP, letting me take the win with the recycled Variable Sword. Just kidding, he used Discord, so I decided to disrespect him instead. Next up in the tournament was Burn Man, which I was actually hoping would happen in this run. I really wanted to use Navi chips throughout the run alongside my chip recycle, so I was hoping to get both Burn and Proto Man to give me 2 sets of Navi chips in the B code. And for those of you wondering, I sadly did not get the perfect Water Buster at the end. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed in myself for that. The match against Burn Man, however, was interesting as his burners actually don't move while he's confused. That was a bit lucky for me since I forgot to preset my Rock Cube before going into this battle. 2 Wide Shots and a Heat Shot did some good damage to him on turn 1, and on turn 2 I got to recycle the Wide Shot and bring in a second new one, though the recycled Wide Shot did get blocked. Once Burn Man broke free from confusion, I did end up walking into one of his burners, but my HP was still high enough for me to feel confident. On turn 3, the second wide shot was recycled, which landed and left Birdman at 140 HP. And finally, on the final turn, I once again hit him with a wide shot, getting him low enough for me to take the win with a heat shot. Wide shot did a lot of heavy lifting in that battle. Last up in this run was Metal Man, another Navi that I preferred to battle against since I knew that I could use the Metal Man chip against Duo later on. Also, why does Tamako act like she doesn't know land in this game when they canonically battled each other in the N1 GP in the previous game? That always bothered me. In the Metal Man match, I started off with a Thunder followed by a guaranteed Twin Fang 3, then blocked his missiles with Guard, which also managed to damage him. Sadly, I did try using Poltergeist to throw his gears at him, but that unfortunately doesn't work. On the next turn, I tried to repeat the Thunder to Twin Fang combo, but I got impatient and ended up missing the Twin Fang. On turn 3, I brought yet another Thunder chip with me, using it to land my Top Man chip, though I couldn't get Metal Man in position to take full damage from it. And finally, on the last turn, I was able to bring a full set of 5 chips, including Variable Sword, a Guard, 2 wide shots, and Heat Shot to finish Metal Man off. Lastly, I of course needed to take on Aquaman DS, having no idea what chips he would be throwing at me. I started this fight with a bunch of my C-coded chips, which have been doing a lot for me in this mid-game section. I was able to use Variable Sword, a Wide Shot, Heat Shot, and Spreader all in the first turn, while Aquaman DS did a bunch of nothing. On the next turn, I recycled my Variable Sword, then landed a Wide Shot and 2 Heat Shots, eventually taking the win with an Air Shot into a normal Buster. There's a lot of shot chips in this folder right now. On the following night, I started off by of course dealing with the false kidnapping preliminary for the final tournament. This time around, I decided to leave the net when my HP went down to 1, ensuring that I would be at high enough HP to survive all of the prelim virus battles. I'm glad to see that I was able to learn a lesson from my Search Soul run. After completing the tournament prelims, my next goal was to head back into the park area to take on Birdman Alpha for his chip. Unfortunately, by the time I made it to his remote corner in Park Area 2, I was already back down to 1 HP, which caused me to get deleted on my first attempt at the fight. On my second attempt, after hitting a Thunder to Time Bomb combo, I unfortunately lost my Rock Cube since I placed it in a questionable spot. In addition, my chip selection each turn was limited, since my recycled chips often don't share a code with my other chips, one of the main weaknesses of my rule set. However, with my recycled Rock Cube in a much better position to help block off his burners, I was able to eventually whittle down Birdman Alpha to get his chip. My next goal of the night was to get the Sea Slider, which I knew I would be using whether or not I was battling Proto Man later on. Despite not planning on spending too much time collecting chips in this run, I figured it could be helpful to get the collect program at some point, just in case having it could help improve the consistency of my folder. With the Sea Slider, I of course made my way into the Undernet, where Mega Man can observe the void from inside his favorite mystery data. After admiring that static-induced view, I decided it would be a good time to take on Metal Man Alpha. Unfortunately, doing so is what caused the next few deaths of the run. On my first attempt, despite getting a few good hits in, such as this Thunder to Top Man combo, I ended up being deleted since I mistimed my guard chip, letting the last of his missiles land and delete me. However, the main issue with battling against Metal Man was his Super Armor program, which allows him to continue his attacks even when I'm hitting him with my chips. That 18 is especially disappointing, as I had 2 chances of blocking this Metal Gear with the Time Bomb, only for both Time Bombs to spawn in the wrong location. After that 20, I decided to battle against some virus fights first to get an HP recovery as a reward, then went back to battling Metal Man. This helped a bit, but didn't stop me from getting deleted 2 more times. Eventually, however, I was able to defeat Metal Man in the most proto way possible. If only this Time Bomb had gone off at the exact moment I was using this Life Sword. Fortunately, I still brought Metal Man's HP down low enough to take him out with a Wide Shot 3 immediately afterwards. It cost me 5 deaths to get it, but having access to the Metal Man chips is definitely worth it. Meanwhile, in Undernet 6, I actually managed to survive the evil virus battle for once, since Circles don't attack you while they're confused. Funny how that works out. After using the jungle program in Undernet 3 once again to get myself enough bug frags for the collect program, I made my way back to the park area to collect. I got a bit lucky along the way, avoiding the possible battle against Birdman SP that can happen in Park Area 2, but we'll get back to the SP Navis in a little while. More importantly, let's start off with the first tournament with both the best and worst news I could have gotten, the best news being that my first round opponent was Coldman. Despite the great news, however, I actually held off on fighting Coldman until the next night, a decision that's about to cause a butterfly effect of bullshit. For now, I actually took the time to track down Walla viruses in Sharo area to get myself the Twin Fang chip in the B code, which led to 3 more deaths at the hands of those pesky Melody viruses. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any Twin Fang chips, and since I was streaming this run on the week of July 4th, I decided to call it a night and leave the remainder of the run for after the holiday. Once I returned after the long weekend to finish up the run, I managed to get my copies of Twin Fang B. With these chips collected, I was able to move on to the battle against Coldman, which went extremely well. As it turns out, Junk Soul is a hard counter to Coldman. He generally doesn't use any of his attacks while he's confused, and I had plenty of obstacle chips in my folder to throw at him. After dealing 200 damage by using Poltergeist on a Rock Cube and a Discord, he finally set up his Ice Cubes, all of which I threw at him alongside a second Rock Cube. That's almost all of his HP, and I even managed to keep myself safe from his White Breath by using those Twin Fangs I grinded for. On the next turn, one last Poltergeist Cube took Coldman down easily. Unfortunately, my second round opponent for this run was Polly. Son of a bitch! Since I hate spending time talking about this scenario, and I got through it all deathless anyways, we'll move directly into the battle, during which I died because I accidentally broke a rule. It's kind of funny how I selected these recycled Twin Fangs according to my rules, then decided to lock in the Time Bomb instead, since I just wanted to get that fight over with. Fortunately, I managed to defeat Polly on attempt number 2, finishing him off with yet another Poltergeist. Last up in this tournament was Proto Man, which means I'll get to use both B-coded Navi chips in this run exactly as I was hoping. The downside to the Proto Man scenario, however, is the existence of a virus battle towards its end that's eerily similar to the annoying virus battle in Ponta's scenario. But don't worry, I didn't die to a poison panel. Hey, I got myself safe for the Rock Cube. What? There's no way. Apparently, the fan virus was able to pull me into my own Rock Cube, which deleted me due to collision damage. After a few more attempts, I managed to defeat this virus gauntlet and move on to the fight against Proto Man. A great way to start that would be to accidentally not select any chips on turn 1, wouldn't it? That was clearly going to go poorly. Just like Melody viruses, Proto Man ended up being a cause for many of my deaths here, since I'm really bad at reacting to his attacks. I did have some close fights, like this fight where I would have won with the variable sword had Proto Man not shielded it. But eventually, my fellow BN4 enthusiast Zetsu pointed out that I could avoid his attacks by keeping a Rock Cube in the center of my field and standing in a back corner. This way, Proto Man would only attack me with his Hero Sword. This device worked well, until I messed up a Metal Man chip. On my next attempt, which was my 6th attempt by the way, I managed to get myself into a position where Proto Man would never attack me, as my Rock Cube and Wind chip were blocking the panels he would move on to do so. This is great, because I once again forgot to load a recycled chip on the turn after I set up that Wind. But since I was perfectly safe at this point, I was able to win with a properly placed Metal Man chip and another Poltergeist. So, with the last tournament done, I was already at a total of 33 deaths. I decided to go after the Proto Man chip next, which I failed to get after a bad start. I used Poltergeist on my defensive rock, only to not get it recycled in my custom window. And he didn't take any damage from my Birdman chip right afterwards. That's the game just being rude to me. 2 attempts later, with a Rock Cube and Discord combo keeping me safe so I could spam my 5 damage buster, I was able to finally defeat Proto Man Alpha to get his chip. My next goal of the night was to obtain some of the SP Navi chips, which was the cause of several deaths throughout the night. I first faced off against Birdman SP, but failed to obtain his chip at first. Next up was a battle against Proto Man SP, but after one failed attempt, I decided to give up on the Proto Man SP chip. Though Proto Man SP apparently wasn't done with me. Coldman Alpha came next, which was of course a much easier battle than either of the SP Navis. I then took on Coldman SP, and I didn't realize that I actually broke my recycled chip rule during this fight. Oh well, not that it matters given how easy Coleman is with Junk Soul anyways. With the Coleman SP chip now available to me, I decided to take on Burnman SP again. I also spent time getting the Element Ice H chip while I was in Undernet 6, so I had plenty of Aqua-type chips to help me in this rematch. Unfortunately, I ended up getting deleted on my first attempt, as I was playing a bit poorly at first. The same goes for attempt 2, where I just decided to do nothing here for some reason. Third time's a charm though, as I was able to get 2 rock cubes in place to completely block his burners, and get a very strong 3-hit Element Ice for some major damage, letting me take the win with a follow-up Poltergeist. With all the Navi chips that I wanted collected, it was finally time to get through the endgame. We'll of course start off with Laserman, who clearly doesn't stand a chance against... Oh no! Guys, it finally happened. Well, that's embarrassing. I literally just needed to press A to use the Burnman chip, and I would have won, but for some reason I just froze and ended up getting hit by his laser, causing me to get deleted by Laserman for the first time in these runs. That's foreshadowing for how the rest of the run is going to go. I did manage to defeat him on my next attempt, finishing off the battle with the Blue Moon Giga chip, but still, I'm very disappointed in myself for losing to him in the first place. Now, usually I would talk about my Dark Soul battle here, but honestly, nothing interesting happened in it, so we'll move on to the final hurdle. Duo was ridiculously difficult for me in this run, even though he really shouldn't have been, since I could use any chip that I wanted. Truthfully, the combination of poor folder building on my part alongside me being exhausted from already having streamed for 4 hours resulted in me dying to Duo several times. So instead of discussing each death, let's just get a compilation going, shall we? So what exactly went wrong? Well, for starters, I was just struggling to dodge most of his attacks, which clearly doesn't help. On top of that, however, I simply had too many chips in my folder that came in various chip codes, making it difficult to use my recycled chips alongside my regular ones at some points. I had chips such as Geyser L and Discord V, which are usually good chips to use, but that had no code synergy with my mostly B-coded folder. So, after 9 failed attempts, I figured that the best decision I could make was to call it a night and try again the next day. Before battling Duo the next day, however, I decided to make some adjustments. First, I made sure to use up the last of my remaining Zenny to buy some HP memories, which got me up to 500 HP. I also adjusted my folder, getting rid of the Discords and the Geyser L that were causing me issues, and placing Panel Return in the folder as my preset chip. With these modifications, I faced off against Duo once again. On the first turn of this rematch, I ended up getting my Geyser right away, as well as the Burnman SP chip, which I waited to use until Duo threw a punch at me so I could ensure all 3 hits from it. I also started using my Buster in this fight, which I had realized I was barely doing the previous night. On turn 2, the Burnman SP chip got recycled, showcasing exactly why I wanted to get access to SP chips in the first place. Once again, I managed to get all 3 hits with that chip, and I threw a rock cube at Duo as well. On turn 3, I managed to get a Thunder to Big Hammer combo, and also managed to avoid a Meteor Knuckle. I'm glad I know his fists don't hit the same panel twice during that attack. On turn 4, I of course started with my panel return, then landed some buster shots after a Thunder. I made sure to use a Big Hammer defensively, and landed both a Side Bamboo and a Vulcan 2 to get Duo down to 355 HP. And in my next custom window, I of course found All Reliable, because of course I had to throw a single copy of Life Sword in the folder. What better way would there have been for me to finish off this run? And so, I managed to get revenge on Duo the night after he slaughtered me 9 times in a row. That run was absolutely ridiculous. I went through a complete roller coaster of emotions on that one, from getting exactly the navis I wanted to battle in every single tournament, to dealing with more deaths than I have had in any of my previous runs by far. The funny thing is that Junk Soul isn't even a bad double soul by any means. I still consider it to be one of the best ones in the game, alongside other prominent souls such as Search Soul and Roll Soul. Recycling used chips is just one of those ridiculously strong abilities that makes Junk Soul so strong and fun to use. If you enjoyed my pain and suffering throughout this run, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for some more Balnark content. After this run, I still have my Wind Soul run to finish off all the double souls, followed by the Dark Soul run that I'll be playing in August. I'll be streaming those runs on both Twitch and YouTube, so there's still more BN4 to look forward to. And as always, thanks for watching.